Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Progress With Us podcast for the first time in 2025. And we're running it back to the same guest who was episode 2 on the podcast, Mr. Ellis Harrison. Bro, it's good to have you here.
Good to have you back, bro.
First one of the year.
First one of the year, bro.
Pleasure, boys. Means a lot. No, glad to be back.
So, for those who have been following Progress With Us since we started it, you will know that we had Ellis on as the second episode, like I just said. And at the time, you were running a clothing brand, which was the majority of the conversation that we've had. And for context as well, we're actually good friends with Ellis, and this is almost treating it like a catch-up. Like, we've actually not spoken in a few months, so we're going to follow our curiosity and ask Ellis, tell us everything that has happened.
A lot's changed.
I might need more than an hour, but no, we'll try and condense it down. So, yeah, I mean, it feels like yesterday since we did that first podcast, but definitely feels like a lot's happened probably on both sides. So, yeah, the clothing brand is, I suppose, on paper, parked. Potentially it's something that we'll come back to. Maybe it's not. But, yeah, I think supposed to kind of summarise that. When doing the clothing brand, something I've not really spoke about, but when I actually look back, the clothing brand for me was probably kind of like therapy. So when I was younger, played rugby and football, loved sport, very competitive sport, all the way, got to that age where it's like, right, sort of pick rugby or football, always kind of flirted with both. Pick rugby, was just naturally sort of better at it, obsessed with it. Absolutely loved it. So, like, training would finish.
You played at a decent level, didn't you?
Yeah. Played sort of academy level, captained, county, sort of kind of tick the boxes in terms of the level that I wanted to play at from an age group point of view. And everyone says, oh, always have that plan B. Didn't really have a plan B. I was just dialed in. That's what I wanted to do. And rugby for me was like my freedom. And then when I got to sort of 16, 17, turned the opposite and more sort of turned into a bit of a prison. So I don't want to bore the guests. I'll try and get through this quick. But in terms of, I used to play sort of between the forwards and the backs. And then obviously as you get older, especially sort of in academy, you kind of got to pick a position. So I went more to the forwards, which is traditionally sort of more a physical role, do more sort of the physical work. Because I had the experience in the backs, I was a little bit more skillful as well, which sort of all the coaches that I had through the age groups quite liked it. So as a forward, I probably wasn't as physical as some of the other forwards in terms of going around and smashing people left, right, and centre, but I'd probably make more tackles because I'd get around the pitch. However, I was a lot more dynamic. So, you know, as a forward, people probably think, right, he's just going to carry hard, try and make a few metres and I'll tackle him. But I had the capacity to sometimes be able to put a kick through or throw an offload. And then I sort of had a coach who literally like had a mould in terms of sort of how he wanted me to play, which for me completely sort of took that freedom out of the game for me. And something which was rugby that was a massive escape and literally my main source of enjoyment, kind of turned to the opposite, felt sort of very trapped by it, completely stopped enjoying it. And from there, sort of made the decision that, you know what, I want a bit of a break from it. Kind of came at that weird time where you're sort of leaving school. And it's like, right, do you go to uni? What do you do? I was like, well, fucking hell, I didn't really have any backup plan. And kind of when I was younger, my dad was a massive inspiration from sort of rugby and a sport point of view. But my uncle was a massive inspiration for me from sort of a business point of view. Had a really good job in the UK, moved out to the US, sort of started his own business and things like that.
No way, I didn't know that.
And he was back in the UK. And I remember he just said to me, he was like, look, he was like, you know, just knowing you and kind of how you are, he's like, you're a good leader. He's like, you know, what about sort of like, you know, I was always be interested in what he was doing. And that's where I kind of thought, you know what, like business, kind of like business, maybe I sort of want to start my own business. And I just knew loads of people that had been to uni, like my friend's brother, like the cleverest kid I've ever met. Like, I think he wanted to be like I don't know, launch rockets or something. Went to uni to do physics, right? I remember like 3 years later, everyone's like, oh yeah, how did your brother do at uni? He was working as like a sales rep at Deliveroo, and he was literally like one of the cleverest people that I've ever seen. And I just saw so many people literally go to uni, live like the uni life, and then just not get anything off the back of it. And I was like, I don't really like that sort of the typical education side of things. Did all right at school, but wasn't the best. And I was like, I want to go out and start making money and get some real world experience. So I did a degree apprenticeship. I had a teacher at school whose son was doing one who sort of really helped me, and that was in like logistics and business management. I kind of felt like I had all this passion and this desire of like playing rugby at a top level, but I didn't really have anywhere to kind of channel that. So when I first started my apprenticeship, I think just kind of naturally, I just pushed all that into there. So I did pretty well, progressed quite quick in there, as you do, like set myself a few goals, like wanted a new car and all this sort of stuff. And I remember sort of one day, I was like, right, they gave you like this roadmap, and it was like, right, this is the role that at the end of the 3 years, if you follow this roadmap, like you'll get there. And I remember getting that role like a lot sooner. Got myself a new car, and I remember it was in like a warehouse, and there was a printer that was like on this top floor. And imagine just like a massive big warehouse, right? And I walked up to this top floor and I went over to this printer to grab something. And I remember just walking and looking over the edge and just thinking, is this it? Like, is this my life? Like, and people are like, oh, you'll be a director by whatever age. And I was like, but actually, that's not what I want to be. And I remember just from there, like, I just kind of spiraled, like, literally, like, I'd go and fucking sit in, if I had like a meeting or like a call, I'd go and sit in the toilet, literally right up to like 2 minutes before and be like, I really don't want to do this. And I think it was just that thing of being on that hamster wheel, and I'd kind of probably took all that passion and that drive, dumped it into something, got probably a little bit of a hit from it in terms of getting them promotions and things like that. But actually that wasn't what I wanted to do. And I think that hit me really, really quick, to the point where I just, get up, didn't really want to go, was getting a bit fed up of life, and just thought, I've got all this passion, and, I feel like I've got potential to, and I want to do something with my life, but don't really know where to put it. And it was a bit of a battle, to be honest. It was a bit of like, I want to push and I want to do something better, but I don't really know where to put all that. Did a few things, like just tried Amazon FBA with my mate. It just didn't really work. Tried a few other little things. Didn't really work. And then lockdown came, and in lockdown, I don't know why, actually. Like, I actually don't know why I kind of started doing it. But I remember my mum saying to me, as a kid, when like new football kits come out, like I'd always print the pictures out, and I'd always like draw them in different colours and stuff. But I was shit at art at school. But basically in lockdown, I just started drawing like clothes with like a bit of design and stuff on. And I remember one night I just sat and I said to myself, right, if I could do anything and it would work, it would 100% work, what would I do? I was like, right, start a clothing brand. So started the brand, and I think by doing that, it again meant that I could take that passion and that drive and actually feel like, right, I'm doing something now. Like, I've got a bit of a purpose, and somewhere where I can drive that passion that's not this corporate 9-to-5 job that I hate and definitely don't want to do for my life. And I feel like that got me through. And by doing that, it also probably taught me loads in terms of the knowledge that I managed to stack. That's I'm leveraging and using now. And I think that wasn't probably, that time, like I say, something that I might come back to because I really, really enjoyed it. But that probably wasn't, in terms of one, you'll know this, you're good at this stuff. What's the like Japanese
Kaizen?
The three circles.
The Ikigai.
Like, yeah. It's like what you're good at, what you can make money from.
And what you enjoy doing.
Yeah. And I remember looking at that, I was like, do you know what? I enjoy this. Yeah, I can make money from it. I'm all right at it, but actually, it's there's definitely something in that middle spot that I'm better at. And when doing that, I had loads of people, like friends that were PTs. One of my dad's friends that'd just be like, I've seen your clothing brand website. How the fuck do you build a website? And because through Vitae for the clothing brand, I did everything myself.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah, literally everything.
To this day, we do still wear the clothes.
Bro, I will
see you two in it all the time. People
People
say it to me. The other day, someone, if someone sent me on Instagram and it was like, or like the caps, people still wear them every
Yeah, bro, Callum Carver still wears that
I
hoodie
saw
whenever
Callum
I'm
in,
on
I
the
saw
call.
Callum in that hoodie, and I was like,
But
what?
whenever we go gym, like, I feel like you get asked it a lot as well. Like, you'll always come back from the gym and you'll be like, yeah, someone was asking me where I got my hoodie from.
people-
Bro, we have to tell everyone. We're like, bro, he doesn't sell it anymore.
People like,
I feel like you should have like a reserve stock for like.
do you know what? I think at home at my mum's house, I think there's some there.
Good.
Look, I think I'll come back to it, but yeah, we'll
guess.
see.
Would you say then, leaving the brand was like a tough decision or more of like a necessary step to get to where you are now?
Yeah. So do you know what? I feel like it was a tough decision. But I think kind of coming back to what I was saying there, when I had the brand, I had a lot of people that sort of came to me and was like, right, how have you done this? How have you done this? Like, can you help me with this in your business? And I kind of got to a point where with a few people, I was, look, I'm quite busy. I can't really help you. And a few people were like, well, what if I pay you? I was like, well, you're my mate. So, like, I'm not going to charge you. Like, I just want to help you. And they're like, yeah, but, like, you can't help me now because you're too busy. If I pay you, like, I need the help, so it's worth paying for.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, fair enough. So I was kind of picking up kind of indirectly, like almost a few kind of consultancy clients to sort of help with different business things, just sort of, small one-man band kind of startups. And then, with Vitae, a few things in terms of probably bits that I got frustrated with, kind of come on to this later, but I had a really bad experience with working with an agency myself. And then, got to a position where I was kind of getting quite busy helping other people. Jay came along.
I was literally just about to ask you about Jay
on the last podcast, with quite a big opportunity to help him with his business, and I thought, you know what, right here, right now, it's for where I think my skill set lies. I think it's a better decision to go, do you know what, let's part the clothing brand and let's double down on this. And I think, one thing probably that I would say that I tell so many people is, I think there's a big thing with our generation where people genuinely like I don't know what to do. Like, left school, all the stupid pressure that you get from the education system is like, go and choose something to do at uni. You make that choice and you're like, well, on paper I'm meant to do this for the rest of my life, but actually this is probably not what I want to do for the rest of my life. What do I do? Like, go and start a business. If that's literally selling, like, I don't know, stickers, like, because there's no other way, in my opinion, that you can literally go and try every single vertical of a business as fast as doing that. Even if you do that super small scale, even if you put a few £100 into a business, go and do the marketing, go and manage the finances, go and try and build yourself a website, go and try and do sales. And that's the quickest way that you'll get to dip your toes in all them different areas of a business. If you went and applied for a marketing job, then left and tried to apply for a finance job, one, probably no one's going to take you to do that. And two, that would be a massive kind of journey of doing that. So by starting a business, it's just a great exercise, and that can just be a little side hustle, but to almost learn, one, what you like, and two, sort of what you're good at.
It's interesting as well because you said that, like, I feel like this is a theme across even just us doing this. Like we said to you a minute ago off the camera, that like this was the thing for us. So for context, last time we did this podcast, I was working at a warehouse and I was cleaning pools on the weekend. Like we didn't even have a business. You were working on the doors and in a bar. But I feel like, do you know, if you start with something like Vitae that you enjoy doing, or like we started with this, something that we enjoy doing, you get over that initial fear. And then once you're in there, you're like, okay, this podcast isn't going to make us rich. But you start to meet people and you start to understand. It's like, right. So you had people coming to you who were saying, like, do you think you can help me with this? And it's like, once you start walking down the path, things just start to become a bit more clear. It's like, oh, this person's asking me about a website. Maybe I should help him out and he'll pay me. And it's like, you have to do something that's really low friction to start that you enjoy doing. But then when you're in there, then you realize that, like, right, this might not get me rich, but it's got me in the door.
Yeah, definitely.
So with the clothing brand, I know that a big part of what you're trying to build at Vision Launch, which is what you're building now, I've heard you make videos about it, is that you wish you had the support that you offer people now when you were doing Vitae. Like, how, from a fulfillment perspective, we'll talk a bit more about Vision Launch and stuff, but from a fulfillment perspective, do you enjoy working with these like one-person businesses and giving them what you needed?
Yeah, massively. So No worries, mate. There we go. You can hear me now. Quite loud, but yeah. So, short answer, yeah, massively. I think probably fortunate as a kid to kind of have parents who were sort of very, accommodating in terms of, sort of try and live your dream, whatever that may be. And I think, without getting really deep quick, but when you actually really sit and deep it, like you get one go round. And I think you kind of realise this as you get older. But like you speak to people who are like, even kind of sort of near our age.
Yeah.
And they're being like some corporate job that they hate and they're going out and they're getting hammered every weekend. And like they've got an amazing idea. Or like, oh yeah, I would have done this if X, Y, and Z. And you're like, well, that's actually a great idea. But they kind of don't think that like, they don't think that they can do it when they probably can. Or on the other hand, it's kind of similar to Vitae, but I kind of managed to pivot. You see people who have started a business, something's not gone quite right, and then whether it's funding or whatever it may be, they then stop and kind of think, oh well, my journey's over, so I'll just go and get a job or whatever that may be. So I think the deep rooted kind of why of Vision Launch is 100% sort of from a commercial point of view. And realising what I'm good at, I thought that was the best way to go. But actually, the deeper meaning behind it is I want to help entrepreneurs, founders, and even business leaders within businesses have that feeling that no, you can go and pursue that dream and go and do that thing that you want to do. And actually, we can kind of help you figure out why. So with traditional agencies, I kind of come on to this story later. What they do is almost take you for what you go and ask for. So if you go to a marketing agency, right, I want paid media for my business. Okay, great. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. We'll do your paid media for you. But actually, they don't look deeper into your business at all them other variables. So, that also saying you can take horse to water, but you can't make it drink it. So, they might even do a decent job and go and execute your paid media strategy really, really well. But there might be so many other things within your business. Your landing page might be crap. Your product images might not be great. Your product might not even be that good, etc., etc. Which then means that they don't then come and convert. So what we try and do is almost take that step a little bit closer in the journey to that person and to their business, to actually try and understand the root cause of what their bottlenecks may be, or their problems may be. And we've got invested in sort of a lot of talent within our team to be able to sort of try and fix the root cause of their business and their bottleneck before then adding that fuel to the fire. So, for example, like a lot of times we'll get people that come to us and be like, I've tried paid media before, it doesn't really work. I want you guys to have a go at it. Hold on a minute, let's have a look at your website. So, we were looking at some data the other day about I think the last 7 clients that came to us to do the paid media, for 4 of them, we've actually built a landing page for them, which is something that they never actually had in the mind, which then in turn helps them as a business because we've sort of fixed a root cause of the problem. It's like, having if we had this glass now, and this glass is your business, and you want to go and pour leads into your business, but you've got loads of holes in it, doesn't matter how much you pour in, they're going to fall out. So essentially what we try and do, which is different to most agencies, is rather than just trying to pour as much liquid into that bucket as possible, is first of all go, well, where are your holes? Let's patch them up. So get your foundations right, and then we'll help you grow. So yeah, I think that's sort of our strategy and what we try and do to make us different.
I feel like that's such a hard message to communicate because if people don't know they need it.
Yeah.
They might be reluctant and they might be like, no, we need this. And then it's kind of you versus whatever their opinion about it is.
Yeah.
And then also like, bro, that is just so true. Like it's a multivariable, infinite equation. Like everything is like, you fix one thing and then it's the next thing, and then it's the next thing, and then it's the next thing. And then you got to go all the way back to the first thing.
And it's complicated as well because we work with all sorts of different businesses. We work with multi-7-figure businesses. We work with startups where they can't can't afford to test things or do two things, or their opportunity cost is much higher. So it very much depends where people are on the journey. And at the end of the day, we advise and we work with that client, but if they want something, we'll still go and deliver that to the best of their ability. So we've got a business that's 5 or 10 years in, and they come and say, look, we want paid media. Sometimes we don't need to go and do that layer of deep diagnostics, because they've got that skin in the game, they've got that experience. Sometimes with a smaller business, with a startup, they're a lot more reciprocal of that conversation. So it depends on the customer, but having that initial, I feel like now everyone's offer has got free consultation call. It's just standard. But towards that sort of initial consultation is really, really important in terms of how we structure that, to try and really get to know that business and sort of understand where them problems sit.
I think what you said at the start as well is super important, about the kind of breaking those initial limiting beliefs as well. I think you hear it all the time, like the one place where you see like billions of dollars worth of ideas is in the graveyard, or something along the lines of that.
Yeah, School of Hard Knocks.
So I feel like that initial thing of, the amount of people that are just stuck in like a cycle of, I don't know, but I've got all these ideas, but I don't want to do it. Like you said, maybe stuck in the job, whatever, going out on a weekend, etc. And breaking past that initial limiting belief I feel like that's super important. Like something I said to you the other day was, it's an analogy I sometimes use on sales calls as well, which is like, if you were to go skydiving, what's the one thing that people say they regret the most? What do you think it'd be?
I got this wrong, by the way.
For someone that goes skydiving.
Yeah, so if someone was
closing your eyes?
No, so the whole thing is just not jumping out of the plane, because they had so many fears and such that they just didn't do it in the first place.
Right.
And I think for a lot of people it's the same with actually trying something new, whether that be I don't know, starting a new business, or trying a new idea, or delegating tasks because their business is their baby or whatnot. I feel like being able to break that initially is such a big part of whatever for everyone, really, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think like Hermosi speaks about it all the time, but like we are actually so significant, and I think like I come across just very confident, but when I'm actually in that kind of phase of like, some of the clients that I work with, I actually sit there and think, fuck, like they've built this business and they're coming to me to help them. Like, I can't do that. But then like when you actually break things down, and kind of coming back to that point of people that have got that idea and they want to launch it and they want to go and do it, and sort of taking that step, like the risk is so worth it.
Yeah.
And if you are self-aware and you've got that diligence to be able to understand that road that you go on, even if it doesn't work, the learnings that you will get for that will propel you massively in then whatever walk of life or next idea or job that you then go into. So if you kind of just, that naivety is sometimes good. That, do you know what?
100%.
Let's just take a massive risk and let's just try it. But when people talk about failure, you learn from your failure. Like a lot of people are stupid, like they don't. But if you're actually really diligent enough and self-aware enough to be able to take that failure and really understand, okay, why didn't that work? The learning that you get from that is just going to compound and push you further wherever that next step of your journey may be.
I guess I'm gonna flip this on you then from what you've just said. And what would you say some kind of lessons learned for you then, running like a physical product business over to say, more of a service-based business now? What would you say some lessons learned in that process would be then?
So without sort of getting too technical, I think a massive thing is strategy. And I think when people say strategy, they think, you've got to have a C in front of your title or be a board director to understand strategy. Essentially, when you actually look at strategy, breaking it down, it's about planning. So launching a product or a service or a business without a real core strategy is massively overlooked. So I've made a little reel on it recently, but Arnie, the men's clothing brand, so simple.
Yeah.
Like everything is just to branch out a bit now, do some nice stuff, but real just basic core product.
Yeah.
But look at how many clothing brands you see online that try and just do the blank strategy. It doesn't really work. But if you actually sort of break Arnie down, what they have behind their business is an extremely strong get-to-market strategy. And by having that plan and that real understanding that every single little move you make, you understand why you're making that move,
Yeah.
is what can set you apart. You don't need sometimes the best idea in the world. Like with Vitae, there was a lot of things where it was like, oh, it seems like a great idea, but actually the idea was there, but it didn't have that strategy behind why it was a good idea and what's going to make it work. So it's the idea can be amazing, but without that execution, that amazing idea might not work. And it's understanding that before why you do something or why you launch that business or why you take that next step in your business, what is the reason and what is the strategy behind that. And I don't think people are, there's so many things online about marketing, about finance, about sales, but strategy, like people are sort of very uneducated on that and why it's so important.
I was going to ask you, so after you kind of decided to put Vitae on hold and after you left working with Jay on Simply B2B, you position yourself working in a very successful company in Manchester, and between Vision launch, you were just working there, weren't you? How valuable was that experience, and how much did that kind of give you what you needed to then go and set up Vision launch?
Massively. So, I think that's sort of where pushing yourself out of your comfort zone is really, really important. And I think that, that's a good example where potentially if you are a little bit scared or you've not got that idea or opportunity to sort of, launch your own business, try and position yourself in a business where you can be as close to, the person running the business or making them key business decisions as possible. I think that's massively important. So yeah, hugely influential from a learning point of view and been around them people, but also from a kind of experience and exposure point of view, that's absolutely huge. I think you can sit in a classroom or you can read a book, and I think I even spoke about this on the first episode, but I really, really live by this, that will never give you that same learning, that same experience as going and getting that exposure in the real world. I think it's Ryan Holiday.
Yeah.
So he's Courage is Calling. There's like a quote in there. I'll probably balls this one up, but it's literally something as simple as like a builder becomes a builder by building.
Yeah.
So going out there and getting that experience is absolutely massive.
How did you kind of deal with the identity shift? Because I imagine that when you started Vitae, you positioned yourself, and in your head you were like, I'm an entrepreneur now, I'm running my business now. Did you kind of have any struggle going from being the entrepreneur to positioning yourself working for someone again? Or did you just know that it was the necessary step for what you needed to do?
So I think, yeah. But I think sometimes you got to drop the ego. But yeah, I mean, 100%. It's always outwardly, it's a little bit of a difficult question. Or what happened to that clothing brand, or sort of what you're doing now. But I think if there's always kind of again a strategy behind that in terms of positioning. And I knew what came with that opportunity. I spoke to the CEO of that business around, look, I've been in this corporate environment before. I've worked really hard to get out of it. I don't just want to fall back into it. But the chat that we had in terms of the longer term plan moving forward, and getting in that position in terms of being around them sorts of people, has actually been a huge olive branch. And I think for example, the first corporate company where I went and did my apprenticeship, amazing. There's so much experience, and when I was there, as much as I hated it, there's so many learnings from that I utilise and lean on now. And I think when you're kind of coming out of school or college or whatever it may be, you probably don't know like a load of sort of entrepreneurs or founders of successful businesses, so it can be quite hard to go and rub shoulders with them or go and get an opportunity with them. However, if you kind of, sort of leave school, you leave university, a big corporate company is a good place to go because GXO, who I had my apprenticeship with, literally the biggest logistics company in the world. So in terms
Really?
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So like clients such as like M&S, Asda,
Yeah.
Nike,
The big
I
dogs.
think they had, massive. So going into a business like that, you're around like real leaders, and from a process and systems point of view, they're pretty on point.
Yeah.
So you get some great learnings. But then if you want to kind of take that next step in sort of entrepreneurship, finding someone who is not just kind of a one-man band startup doing a few grand a month at the garage or whatever, but someone who's got a good size operation, like the business that I went and joined, that you can kind of get a little bit higher up, and be rubbing shoulders with the founder. That's a really, really great way to almost go and become kind of an entrepreneur, learn, rub shoulders, have that experience of making decisions that you would probably have to make as a business owner, but with a little bit of insurance and less risk, because at the end of the day it's not your business. But it's interesting that because the business that I actually went to work for, I met through Jack from Morley, and they was actually one of the businesses that I was sort of helping as a client, and then through that got the opportunity to then go and sort of work with them full time. And then that's actually been an olive branch in terms of bringing clients into Vision Launch. Some of the team from there are now in the Vision Launch team. And then, from my point of view, with the CEO and founder of that business, there's also some other really exciting kind of ventures and projects that me and him are launching together, which are like crazy, which I would have, at this point in my life, never been able to kind of fund myself or, had the experience to be able to be involved with them without him. So yeah, again, that was kind of from an ego point of view, it was a tough one in terms of kind of on paper and going back to being an employee again. But I knew myself the opportunity that would bring, and the learnings that I've took from that have been massive. So, and looking back, it was the right thing to do. But I think that's where you've got to trust yourself, and sometimes, that ego, like, a little bit unrelated, but I think like there's a saying, it's like, what's the equity of fuck all? Fuck all.
It's true.
And in this day and age, it's like, I feel like probably when we were kids, everyone wanted to be a footballer.
Yeah.
Like now it's like everyone wants to be like an entrepreneur. And because of how social media probably, everyone thinks everything's so quick. But like, if you look at the real like hitters, like your Ben Francis's, like I was watching something with like Lewis Morgan the other day, like stuff takes time. And the quicker that you can understand that and drop that ego of trying to be an overnight success and kind of having that quick win, and really stacking knowledge and skills, then that's probably going to accelerate you in years to come.
Bro, I think it's going to be really interesting to see long term that the effect that like the past 5 years have had on people going to uni and people wanting to get a job and stuff, like in the long term. Because I know, and you will know, like, because a lot of the stuff that I've been a part of, lots of coaching programs and stuff, because I've kind of like just been like, right, teach me. And there are so many people in those programs, like they are great people. And they're the kind of people that like, they're going to do well for themselves. But you just kind of, it's almost like people hear about it and they're like, right, they see the potential in it, but they never really jump in. And it's something like, I don't really think even I jumped in until like 6 months ago when I was like, right, like you're not just kind of doing this, like you're not just like 20 and you're like, I'm doing a bit of this and it's doing all right. It's like, no, like you actually have to go all in on it. And I feel like so many people see the opportunity and they kind of think like, yeah, this could work, but they never actually like go. They never go, like fully commit. And I just think it'll be fascinating to see in the next 10 years of the effect that like all these people who are leaving their job and they're starting a business and whatever, and they're kind of half-heartedly doing it, will actually have in the grand scheme of things. And on a point that you said a minute ago as well about how like it's another Hormozy thing, but it's like when you think on kind of like a 10-year time horizon, the 6-7 months that you positioned yourself in that company is fuck all.
Yeah.
It's no time. Like when you actually think about it, last time we did the the first episode, 6th of December, 2023. It's now the 9th of May, 2025.
Yeah.
And it's flown by.
It's a madness. Like,
And it has flown by. But if you were to say to yourself that, like, oh, you know, I've got a year to do all of this, and, you know, I really want to be here and whatever. It's like, it seems like this massive ethereal thing. And it's like, no, I don't want to do that for a year. And I don't know. But then you realize that the time flies by.
And the thing is so, again, I'm not in the camp of do something you love and it'll all work out. Not in that camp, but I'm also not in the camp of I'll just find something that makes money, and even if you hate it, go for that.
Yeah.
And so the kind of the reason why I'm saying that is I think there's so many people that pick one of them things. So they're like, oh, I need to be an entrepreneur. You know, everyone's driving Lambos in Dubai. Entrepreneur's a cool thing to be. I've just seen, you know, Charlie looks like he's smashing it, and he does webinars, and he's done a course, and that seems like a great way to make money.
I don't sell a course, by the way.
And they just think, right, money, go and do that.
Yeah.
Well, they probably don't even know what it is. Or on the other side, someone kind of goes, oh, you know, that's something that I absolutely love. I'm going to go and try and do that. Both of them things can work. You know, you see people make them decisions and they work. And you know, and they go and do that. But again, they've not got that proper thought process behind it. They've not got that awareness behind it. So they'll jump into one of them things, and it probably doesn't stand the test of time. So, and don't get this mistake, I'm not going to say work behind the till at Tesco. Like, that's completely different. But if you can position yourself rightly within a business, you know, sort of a medium-sized business, you know, probably like 25 to 100 employees, where there's probably, you know, like an initial leadership team, then a bit of a mid-manager, and then you've got the founders and that sort of C team. If you can get yourself in a business like that, in that mid-managed position, and work your way sort of into that senior team, it's almost like a little bit of a cheat code, as I touched on earlier, because you're going to get that exposure in terms of what it is like to run a business next to people that can clearly run a business and be successful. You're going to let them take, you know, the actual sort of accountability for, you know, kind of any mistakes. You're going to be rubbing shoulders with them in the actual operating environment, which you don't get from a course or from a book. So you're going to see how they operate in the flesh, and it's going to give you that exposure to, you know, making them decisions and operating in that environment, and you'll learn so much from it.
I was going to say as well, I feel like people, you don't quite understand until you get in how willing people are to help you. Like, people, not only are they willing to do it, they actively want to help you.
And I think this is just a bit off point, but I think one thing is, like, for what everybody has, like, is sweat equity. So, you know, kind of in that, you know, looking back in that position, you know, wasn't in a position where I could have just gone and took loads of money to, you know, go and start something. Didn't necessarily have like I probably did, but didn't really realise it, but like a high income skill where I was like, boom, I can monetize that tomorrow as such. But, you know, what I did was kind of get in there, build that relationship, and put loads of sweat equity into there. Be careful how you say that. Loads of sweat equity, you know, into that business, and that gets you recognised by putting in that graph, you know, going above and beyond, doing them, been the first one in, been the last one out, having impact, and, you know, not just going sitting on the chair for 12 hours and twiddling your thumbs, but that sweat equity, it will honestly get you so far in them initial stages of your journey. And I think, you know, going back to that point earlier where I said about, you know, things that you love or just things that you think can you know, go and make you loads of money, by being in that business environment, and, you know, by going into a sort of a corporation like that, you can start to understand yourself more. So, you know, you learn all them things, and that business that I, you know, went and worked in, the vertical in which they operate, when I went on day one, I knew that wasn't an industry that I wanted to spend the rest of my life in. But that, again, helped me sort of even niche down even further, sort of where I'm good, you know, where I can add impact, which then meant that when I separated myself again and kind of stepped back into having my own business, it was more, sharpened and polished, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do from an enjoyment and fulfillment point of view, but also from a position where I know I can bring value to clients and monetize it.
I think what you kind of said before as well, about that point of doing something that you really hate just primarily to make money, doing something that you really love. At a certain point, they can kind of blend together as well. Because I think I spoke about this recently, and it was just the whole idea that, once you delve into something further, you'll start to uncover a bunch of intricacies within that thing. So let's say, I don't know, you have your first, I'm going to run it back to myself maybe, your first sales call or something. Might go horrible, might go really well, whatnot. But maybe after 10 of those, you've uncovered something that you're really good at, you've discovered a good framework or whatnot, And at some point, you'll probably find some intricacies down the road that you actually love.
Yeah.
And then it goes from being something that, oh, this is so hard, I fucking hate it, to, wow, I've actually found something within this thing that I'm really good at and I love it, which then brings you back over to the other side in the first place, which I think is another way to kind of look at it as well. Because nothing's fun when you first start it most of the time. Like the first day you go to the gym, you don't really feel amazing. You're like, oh, this is hard, I don't know what I'm doing, whatnot. 2 years later, you're looking good, you're big, whatever. And you're like, wow, thank fuck I started in the first place.
Yeah, and I think, a very good point. It kind of cuts that by, if you've not got that thing that you want to go and do, by going and getting yourself in that position where you can see someone who is extremely successful as an entrepreneur, it actually gives you the understanding and the confidence that actually it's not all jumping on yachts and driving Lambos. Actually, there's this guy here who's really successful, who is probably where I want to be, and he's getting into an office at 6:30 in the morning. He's got to deal with people in a team that are causing issues. He's got to file his accounts. He's got to do X, Y, and Z. All them, kind of things that aren't enjoyable, that aren't fancy, that people don't put on social media, that comes with running your own business and being an entrepreneur. You get to see that. So you get to see the product of what you want to be and the actual reality of that life.
Yeah.
So then when it comes to you wanting to run your own business, or you start your own business and you realise it's not all sunshine and rainbows, you're like, actually, do you know what? This doesn't feel great right now, but I know that that person who I've actually seen and worked with day to day, who is a successful entrepreneur and is a person in the position where I want to be, also has to do all these shit things.
Yeah.
They're all a part of it. It kind of helps you detox yourself from that social media entrepreneur, every day's amazing. It gives you that reality check and helps you with sort of that discipline and understanding that you've got to do the hard stuff too.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, for you personally then, what would you say is probably one of the most unexpected challenges that's happened since, transitioning into the whole, the vision, and how did you overcome that to a degree then?
Good. Very good question. In terms of unexpected challenges, it's definitely not been smooth so far, but we've been pretty fortunate, and this is probably not necessarily going to answer that question because we have had challenges, but I think by going in and being that employee on paper again, and making that decision, there was definitely a lot of challenges in that business. But by being exposed to them challenges in that business, it meant that then I had the understanding to make sure that when I started my business, I could proactively put things in place to preempt them challenges. So far, yeah, it's not all singing and dancing, but in terms of catastrophic, huge challenges, there's not been. Touch wood.
Touch wood, bro. Fucking touch wood, bro.
This might make a really good third episode. But there's not been anything, too kind of catastrophic yet. But I was kind of saying to Charlie before, we've not really put the foot down in terms of all gas no brakes yet. Been fortunate that kind of through my network brought in a really, really strong kind of head of ops and head of agency who's brought in a couple of clients, and then from the business that I was working with last year. Been fortunate enough that they've managed to bring in clients because of their network. We've been spending a lot of time making sure that we deliver a top service for them, making sure that our business is got really sort of core strong SOPs, and then also really kind of defining our offer, making sure that as a business we're really proud in terms of how we look and kind of how we define ourselves, and then probably sort of to the back end of this quarter we're really going to sort of push ourselves out to the market a lot more, and I think a lot more challenges will come with that. But yeah, kind of so far nothing sort of that's been too much of a blocker.
Yeah,
but
touch wood. To be fair, I was going to ask you something, which is something that, like, dude, I admire this so much. Like, are you 2 years older, or are you a year above?
So I'm 23.
2 years older.
Yeah.
But you've made that transition from kind of doing your own thing and being the kind of like the beginner and kind of figuring everything out to leading a team in a very short space of time. What is it like for you to have to like step up into that leadership role as opposed to being the kind of the operator?
It's, again, I'm going to come back to it. Having from my working, doing my apprenticeship and having leadership positions there, learnt loads. When I played rugby, I always was kind of captain and enjoyed that. It's sport, but I think you can learn so much from sport that you can apply to business and all other walks of life. So again, having that experience in scenarios that is not my own business, where I can learn and make mistakes, so coming into my business I can be better, is a great move for people. But I would say that is a challenge, because I'm quite, if there's something that I want to do, I will kind of go and attack it. And
you're allowed to say autistic, by the way.
Yeah, very weird, autistic with things, and I'll go and attack it. And then when you've got a team, sometimes you have to go slower, which then makes you go faster, and obviously means that you can manage more. I think sometimes I struggle with that, and that's definitely something in which can be a little bit difficult. But I think the way that something that I've learned is in terms of kind of processes, been very structured and systemized, and having sort of real strong SOPs is massive. But actually making sure that you do that with your team, and I think just mastering the basics, which at the minute, because of kind of the pace and things that we've had going on, I massively need to improve on it. And I think because of the relationship that I've got with my team at the minute, it's sort of been very trenches, and everyone's been locked in and really delivering. And I think rewarding them guys is really, really important. But just doing the basics, so every single morning a morning meeting, that's not an hour meeting, but that's just a morning meeting to make sure that everyone's aligned, everyone's on track in terms of what they need to be delivering, and also giving all them people right at the start of the day the opportunity that if they need any support from Rach, my head of ops, she steps in, she's fantastic and she sort of leads it. But having the opportunity to ask for that support of her, or having the opportunity to ask for that support of me right at the start of the day is really important. And then from a task point of view, I want to make sure that team, that they're a very talented team. So I don't want to put them in a box, or there'd be no point in having that team. I may as well just do it myself.
Yeah.
But in terms of processes and deliveries, having them standard operating procedures in which the team know to follow, again, aligns everyone and keeps that direction. And I think just keeping things simple and mastering the basics. Say thanks to the guys at the end of the day. Say morning to everyone. Ask someone on a Friday, what are you doing this weekend? And on a Monday, asking, how was that thing? So, what's your plans this weekend? Oh, I'm going golfing. Monday, how did you get on at golfing?
Yeah.
Oh, fucking hell, he listened to me on Friday. Not just how was your weekend.
Yeah.
Like, them, you see, like, oh, yeah, we paid for all the team to go and do this. Or they're great, but actually understanding your team, listening to your team, and doing them basic things is really, really important.
I guess, how would you say then, in comparison to before, you're managing a team, you're primarily around more of like a client-based business. So how has your day-to-day changed from what it was before? What does a day look like compared to running kind of a product-based business as well?
Yeah, so I think in terms of my days now, it's a lot more about being on the business rather than in it. So, you know, for instance, if we look at Vitae or, you know, look at, you know, kind of my previous position, there'd be, you know, kind of a task that'd be taken and it'd be like, right, I'm going to break that down and very much do that. Whereas now it's almost, if we've got a task that can sit within a standard operating procedure, it's making sure that task flows through that, and that essentially the senior people within my team been on top of then deliverables and seeing that through. But, you know, don't get me wrong, if there's a new idea or a new project, it's about me being able to utilise my team and knowing that we've got them processes in place where I can leave them guys to it, and sometimes, you know, getting back in that creative seat and, you know, doing a bit of the do, and just, you know, knowing then when to let that go. And, you know, sometimes, like literally this morning, one of my front-end developers is unbelievable. Like, I can give him something and he delivers every single time. But this morning, I got out an A3 piece of paper and drew out, like, how I wanted a landing page to look. And I gave it him, and that probably took me half an hour. And I'm like,
Who needs Figma anyway?
but I'm like, you know, I brought that talent in for a reason. Like, you know, trust it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I guess this is kind of like maybe a little bit of a hard question as well, but, you know, future Ellis, you know, right now, you know, things have changed a lot compared to when we spoke to you last. So I guess if you could give, say, one piece of advice to yourself when we spoke to you previously, you know, maybe through things that you've learned over the past year or so, for everything that's gone on, what would that piece of advice be?
Self-belief. So I think...
Forgive me.
Probably it's a bit of that to give me a bit more self-belief. But I think, you know, a lot of... So I'm quite a self-aware person. And if I probably look back at 18-year-old me, if I looked at kind of, you know, where I am now, I'd probably be pretty proud of myself. Yeah. But sat here where I am, looking at what I want to achieve by the end of this year and over the next 3 and 5 and 10 years, I'm still shit myself and think, can I really do that? And I probably think if I actually had a bit more inner self-belief, I could have probably done a lot more, done it a bit quicker. And I think moving into this next period, being able to build that wall of confidence and be a little bit more present and take into account what you've done and use that to then propel yourself forward is, you know, something that can really, really drive you. And I think, you know, that's probably one thing that I would say to myself, just have a little bit more of that. And I think, you know, that's we were touching on at the start of the podcast, a massive bit around the, you know, the main points of the conversation, that if you want to go and do that thing, there's so many more people out there that are probably not as smart as you, not as good a person as you, but they've got that self-belief. Yeah. And they've gone and fucking done it. 100%. So, you know, don't be cocky, don't be arrogant. Bit of naivety is good, but don't be too naive. Yeah. But back yourself.
I feel like, dude, it's so hard because I wholeheartedly 100% agree with everything that you just said. But because it's the kind of thing that gets said so often, it kind of gets watered down. Yeah. Like self-belief. Like everyone's like, yeah, you know, believe in yourself. You just got to believe that you can do it. And because so many people say it, it just becomes this thing. It's like, right, not you again. Scroll. But it's so unbelievably true. Like, honestly, so many people, like, I bet, like, you probably have people who believe in you more than you believe in yourself.
Yeah, massively.
And, like, why? Like, you probably know that you have the ability to go on and build whatever you want to build with Vision Launch. Like, you know you're able to do it. And I feel like so many people just don't. They have other people who believe in them more than they believe in themselves. Yeah. And they probably believe in their friends or people around them more than they believe in themselves. And it's just it's so true. It's so true.
And it's difficult. Like, it's very difficult. Like, if someone says, oh, you know, like a hard skill, I want to get better at, you know, copywriting, or I want to get better at, you know...
Use AI. Don't fucking write no copy.
I want to get better at using AI.
Yeah.
Like, you can, you know, it's quite easy to really plan out them steps. I need to improve my self-belief. Like, it's fucking difficult, man.
Yeah.
But I think it's the reason why so many people say it is because it's so powerful. Like, if you can go through life with that, you know, right energy, you know, someone I look at, like Jack, is is even when, potentially something's not gone his way or whatever, that the energy that he just brings to absolutely everything that he does, his outputs are fantastic. And being able to operate on that level of energy with that self-belief is massive.
Something that I think you're the right man to ask about this, right? Because one of the kind of patterns that I've seen emerge quite a lot, just like people I know, or to be honest, even myself, this is me just asking you a question, but I feel like you can kind of use that self-belief and the kind of, do you know like when you first start going to the gym and you get, what's it called, like newbie gains?
Yeah.
I feel like you can kind of get that in business.
Yeah.
Like you can kind of just like fucking balls to the wall and get yourself to a point where you're like, right, I've got something going here.
Yeah.
But a common theme that I've seen across so many people in my network is first hire, right? Because do you know what you were saying earlier? It's like, if I do this myself, I can go fast. And it's like, as soon as something happens, I'm like, right, I'm going to do it. And I'm very much like that at the moment. And I know there are so many people who I know who get to a point where they've got something good going. But when it's time to get uncomfortable and when it's time to scale, like this is currently where I am right now, where it's like, I'm comfortable. And I know this, but what's your advice on things? Because we asked Jay this, and Jay was talking about how when he hired someone, he was just like, I have no idea why I didn't do this earlier.
Yeah.
When time when you know it's right to make the first hire, and then B, what are really good practices when first stepping into a role where like you've got someone underneath you and it's not just you?
Yeah. So in terms of time, I would say when your value in terms of your output starts, you can constantly see that diminishing. So you're probably spreading yourself a little bit too thin, and you're probably trying to do everything. One, you might think it's cheaper. Well, why would I hire someone?
Yeah.
Also, you might be in that little bit of a point where if it's comfortable, well, I can just do that. But actually, you're either trying really, really hard and not getting complacent, but you're almost burning yourself out a little bit. You need to sharpen that sword. So the value in terms of what you're producing is not as good. Or on the flip side, you're like, oh, do you know what? Actually, I'm getting a bit complacent. And if you actually really look at yourself in the mirror, you could probably be doing a little bit better. That's a good time to bring someone in, either to help you or to push you. So they're kind of probably two sort of triggers in terms of knowing when to bring someone in. In terms of bringing someone in, and I spoke about it earlier, it's really important to bring someone in who aligns with your strategy. So, for example, with Vitae, I had a guy who, it was incredible. And he's gone on to do some really, really successful things, who worked with me in that business, but he was almost like a clone of me in terms of what he was good at. So it wasn't pointless, it helped, but like we were really, really good sort of at the same thing. However, it didn't really help with the gaps that we had in the business. So what I would say when you're looking for that person is hire in line with your sort of strategy and with your gaps. So, right here, right now, in terms of sort of from a vision launch point of view, we have, like from sort of an operations point of view, we could probably do some, to help a little bit. From a creative direction point of view, it'd be good to sort of bring someone in there to kind of help with content and things like that. However, in terms of where the demand is for our products, in terms of our strategy of where we sort of want to go over the next 12 months, the right move for us right now is hiring another back-end developer. So understanding your strategy in terms of where you want to take your business and bringing in someone who can be a stepping stone for that is sort of a good line of thinking in terms of making sure you pick that right person.
One thing that I've seen in a few people's businesses is bringing in a really good, it's like top talent, right? Someone who's really good, and then them going on and starting their own thing. Let's say someone at Vision Launch, one of your A players wanted to go and start their own thing. How do you deal with that kind of situation? Like, I don't know if that's happened or if you're kind of preempting it or.
So when I started Vision Launch, did the first personal development plans with all the team. Their personal development plans, if you've been in a corporate business, are given to someone who's not performing. If you're leading a business, have one of them with everybody. It's great to have that one-to-one check-in and make sure that you're developing even your A players. But I said to everyone when they came into the business, there's only two reasons why I'd want you to leave. One is you're retired, or the second one is because you're going to start your own business. So I think if you bring people into your business and that person has dreams, and this is literally like me with my apprenticeship, that business feels like a box in which is stopping that person from achieving their dreams, then they will not give their all to your business. If you can make your business feel like a place which can enable that person to achieve their dreams, then they will be a much more valuable asset for you. When it then comes to that time of that person wanting to potentially, and then they'll do two things. Either they'll fall in love with the business and they'll want to stay and actually become a little bit of an entrepreneur. Or if they get to that point where they do want to leave, make sure you've got good contract in place through A players. So have like a 3-month notice period.
Yeah.
Then, you've got options there. If that person, has got that idea and they want to go, I think it's I'd be a big hypocrite if I tried to put a ball and chain on someone. But, if you've got a good, successful business and you're successful as an entrepreneur, then that could be a new business for you.
Yeah.
You could go and invest in that business. You could be a service provider to that business. So it's probably a very, very unpopular opinion. But I think, to get the best out of your people, if they've got a dream of something that they want to go and do, you don't want to stop that person, because that'll have a negative effect on them, what they do for your business. You've got to have, and that's why systems in business are so important. So, last month I wasn't in the business for 4 weeks. We brought on new clients. We hit our KPIs. We hit our SLAs. That's because we've got great systems that, as long as there's a person with sort of the right level of competence at the top of each of them systems, the business runs. So I don't want to lose any of my team right now. But if the systems are strong enough, if one of them key players left, with a bit of a few months notice period, with the right talent acquisition strategy, we could still keep the business on the trajectory that it want to go. But yeah, I think coming back to that point, if you want good talent in your business, especially young talent, you've got to understand that then people potentially will want to go and develop within your business, or potentially go and do their own thing.
Yeah.
And by being proactive and waking up to that, you'll get more out of that person every time they walk through the door than trying to stop that and put a ball and chain on them.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective, because I guess it's kind of like it's what you've done as well,
Yeah.
and you've really benefited from it. And I imagine that both your degree apprenticeship and when you positioned yourself in the amazing company, that they both valued you highly, and they were probably sad to see you leave, but they were also probably happy to see you go and do something that you wanted to do.
Yeah, and I think like I said, if I look at the business that I work for, I still work very closely with them. So there's still that value exchange there. So you keep them relationships and you don't burn them bridges. Then it can still have value for both parties.
What about fitness? Because we talked about this before, and we said we were going to talk about it.
Yeah, let's leave that one today. Fitness, yeah. So last year was a pretty fun year. Did 2 first half marathons, 2 marathons, first marathons, and then 2 free high roxes.
Blimey.
This year.
Sounds like a lot of cardio.
Yeah, it's too much cardio per year, isn't
You're
it?
back on the weights, mate. I'm telling you. This year, I had a high rocks like 2 weeks ago. Cancelled it. Didn't bother doing it. Got a marathon next week. Not doing that. I think with as much as I preach, systems and etc. When you're launching something new, if you want to do it right, it takes a lot of hours, takes a lot out of you, and the priority has been there. And I think the thing with me is, and this is not a good thing, is sometimes I feel like if I'm going to go and do a marathon, I need to like break a fucking record or whatever. And in my head, if I feel that I'm not good enough to do that, then even if I went and did a marathon, but I didn't get the time that I had in my head, it'd just mess with my head.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, oh, that's a failure.
Yeah.
So I'm like, right, do you know what? Actually, let's focus on business, double down, dial in. Still training, still trying to train every day. And then, you know, we'll kind of get back on the marathon track probably.
Nice, dude. Bro, I'm so fucking proud of you. Like, to
Yeah,
sit,
man.
bro, to sit
sure.
down,
Well,
like,
I think you've done
to
that.
sit
Long way to
down
go,
from when
yeah.
we were just kind of like, I mean, it doesn't even seem that long ago. And, like,
Yeah,
just so
crazy.
much has happened since. And, like, to see that you've kind of, like, come out this new man. Like, you've become a leader and everything. And it's, bro, I can tell that you are super dialed in, really
Yeah,
enjoying what
fully.
you're doing. And bro, it's so good to see. It's so good to see. Like the whole point of this and the whole reason we call it Progress With Us. And at the end of the last pod, we were like, oh, I'm sure we'll run it back
Do
in a
another
year's
one. Yeah.
time or so. And this is the whole point of it, man. Bro, fucking, I'm super proud of you, dude.
Appreciate it,
It's
boys.
super,
Thank you very
so good to have you on. So good. And bro,
No,
no
pleasure
doubt
to
we'll
catch
do
you
it
up.
again.
Innit,
No
man?
doubt we'll do
Yeah.
it again. And you'll probably come back and say, oh, remember what I said on the last one? Well, that actually turned out differently.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's all learning, dude. It's all learning. Bro, I've learned a lot.
No,
Thank you
yeah,
so much
boys.
for coming
Left
on.
me
Means a
thinking
lot.
about some things for sure.
I know, dude. Thank you so much. Right. Thanks for watching, guys.
It's been a pleasure.
Like, subscribe, you know, all that bullshit.